Apple is about to charge you $2,000 for a phone that folds in half. And the wild part, you might actually want it. This fall, there are 3 premium iPhones and 0 cheap ones: iPhone 18 Pro, iPhone 18 Pro Max, and the iPhone Ultra, Apple's first foldable. After going through every leak, every supply chain report, and every rumor on all 3, I landed on a take that most people aren't going to agree with. And there's a supply problem sitting inside the iPhone 18 Pro right now that's worth about $1 billion that almost nobody's covering. It's the thing that might decide whether you even get one at launch. We'll get there. Let's start with what you're actually choosing between, because these aren't just size variants, they're 3 fundamentally different products. iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max are the familiar path: classic iPhone design, 3-camera system, the new A20 Pro chip, and I'll get into why that chip is more interesting than it sounds, Apple's in-house C2 modem, and battery life that's rumored to be the best Apple has ever shipped. The Pro Max specifically is getting a meaningful upgrade here: 5,567 milliamp hours, up from 5,088 on the 17 Pro Max. That's nearly a 10% increase in cell size, paired with a chip that uses up to 30% less power. The math on that combination is quietly impressive. Then there's iPhone Ultra, book-style foldable, 5.5-inch outer display, 7.8-inch inner screen, thin titanium body, Touch ID, not Face ID, 2 rear cameras, starting price around $2,000. $2,000. And here's where it starts to get interesting, because that price buys you less camera hardware than the phone that costs half as much. We'll come back to that. Every year, Apple says their fastest chip yet, and every year people nod and move on. This year is genuinely different. Here's why. Apple is moving to TSMC's 2-nanometer process, up from the 3rd generation 3-nanometer node on last year's A19 Pro. That shift alone delivers up to 15% faster speeds or up to 30% lower power consumption. Apple typically chooses efficiency, and with the battery size they're pairing this with, that combination is going to be something. But the packaging change is the bigger story, and almost nobody's covering it. Apple is ditching a technology that stacked memory physically on top of the chip and moving to something called wafer-level multi-chip module. In plain language, the processor, the GPU, the neural engine, and the RAM are now all integrated at the wafer level. Same package, less physical distance between components, faster communication, less heat buildup over the processor, and the memory itself is upgrading from 64-bit LPDDR5X to 96-bit LPDDR6. Higher bandwidth, better sustained performance, especially during heavy AI workloads, which is exactly where Apple needs this chip to deliver. For Apple Intelligence to actually feel intelligent, it needs this architecture to work. This is the part that excites me most about iPhone 18 Pro. Not the display, not the cameras, the foundation. Okay, here's the part that should concern anyone planning to buy on day one. There is approximately $1 billion worth of A20 Pro chips sitting at TSMC right now, done, finished production, doing absolutely nothing. Here's why. This new packaging process requires memory to be bonded to the processor wafer during production. Memory has to be there, physically present, before the package can be completed. And Apple is currently struggling to secure enough memory chips to finish the process. No memory chips. Wafers can't be packaged. Wafers can't be packaged. Logic board assembly can't begin. Assembly can't begin. There's no Zoom there's no iPhone to put in a box. Apple reportedly plans to produce around 200 million units across the iPhone 18 lineup over its full life cycle. The Ultra accounts for under 10% of that volume. And with this RAM shortage affecting production timing, limited inventory is expected at launch. If you're planning to be first in line for either the Pro or the Ultra, you might want to set an alert and maybe a backup plan. Now, why go through all this engineering complexity in the first place? Because the performance gains are real. This new chip architecture cuts communication delays between components, keeps thermals in check, and combined with LPDDR6 memory bandwidth, you're looking at the biggest sustained performance leap in the iPhone Pro line in years. iPhones don't have the undisputed performance edge over Android that they used to. This architecture is Apple trying to change that. Cameras. This is where iPhone 18 Pro genuinely separates itself from everything else in the lineup, including the phone that costs twice as much. There are two camera upgrades that are reported to be Pro exclusive this year. The first one, a variable aperture on the main camera. The second one, a wider aperture telephoto lens for improved low light performance. Variable aperture is not a small thing. It means the lens physically adjusts how much light it lets in, mechanically, not digitally. More control in different lighting conditions, better depth of field flexibility. This is something photographers pay thousands of dollars for in dedicated cameras, and the iPhone Ultra, despite its price, only gets two rear cameras, no telephoto, no variable aperture, according to current reports. So you are paying $2,000 for fewer cameras than the device that costs roughly half as much. That's not spin, that's the spec sheet. The reason is likely physical. Variable aperture takes space, and in a foldable form factor, space is the most constrained resource you have. Apple probably had to make a choice. They chose thin over comprehensive. That trade-off might be fine for you. But it's worth knowing exactly what you're trading. Let's talk about money, because this lineup is expensive in a way that feels different. iPhone 18 Pro. Analysts expect a starting price between $1,299 and $1,399. iPhone 18 Pro, max $1,399 to $1,499. iPhone Ultra, approximately $2,000, possibly more. For context, iPhone 17 started at $799. The iPhone 18 Pro could cost nearly double that. And here's the part that makes this sting more than usual. The standard iPhone 18 isn't arriving until early 2027. So if you want a new iPhone this fall, this lineup is it. All premium, all pro priced, no middle ground. Apple is essentially telling you if you want in this year, you're buying Pro, which by the way also means the pressure on these three devices to deliver is higher than it's ever been, because there's no affordable version quietly available for the people who get sticker shock. This is it. So which one is actually worth it? Here's my honest take. For most people, iPhone 18 Pro Max, best battery life Apple has ever shipped. Full 3-camera system with variable aperture, a 20 Pro chip with the full new packaging efficiency upgrade, and a starting price that, while genuinely high, is still roughly $1,000 less than the Ultra. The Ultra is exciting. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. A folding iPhone is something people have been waiting years for, but this is a first-generation foldable at a first-generation foldable price. 2 cameras instead of 3. Touch ID instead of Face ID. Supply constraints that could make it hard to get at launch. And a crease-free display claim that we haven't been able to independently verify yet. If you are an early adopter, someone who genuinely needs to have the most interesting object in the room and is comfortable being the beta tester, the Ultra is your phone. If you want the best iPhone Apple actually makes right now, that's the Pro Max. And here's the thing I keep coming back to. That RAM shortage, that $1 billion in chips sitting idle at TSMC, it isn't just a logistics problem, it's a signal. This is genuinely new territory for Apple. First time doing this architecture at iPhone volume, which means the iPhone 19 Pro might be the one where all of this becomes completely seamless. Something worth thinking about before you spend $2,000 on a foldable in year one. Which one are you getting, the Pro Max or the Ultra? I'm genuinely curious whether anyone is actually ready to spend $2,000 on a folding iPhone in its first generation. Drop it in the comments, because I have a feeling the split is going to be more interesting than people think.